once
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, so I'm not sure if they heard that. Okay, so again, just in case you didn't hear and you've just joined us, we're going to start the webinar on top tips for getting a job in Australia. I'm Louise Corretcher. I'm the director of Red English, a company in Melbourne that helps people write more successful job applications and helps them with their English and their Spanish. So today I'm going to share some of the top tips that I have found really help people get from writing an application to getting a call from a prospective employer to then have the chance to get an interview. So it focuses on the writing because that's where you can really grab your chance at an interview. You can go and learn a lot more about interview skills, but the important thing is to get the interview in the first place, and that's where writing a really good application is really important. So I've helped lots of people do this. I'm going to go through some slides with my top tips that I hope will be helpful for you. You should be able to see a button that allows you to ask questions. So you can type in questions during the webinar, and we will have some time at the end of the slides to answer those questions. We hope that you're all hearing us and that everything is going fine. If not, please type a message for us. Please let us know if you can't hear us or you can't see the slides or anything, any technical difficulties. We're just waiting a couple of more minutes just to make sure that we've got all of our attendees. We hope you're having a great day.
Also, if you are not watching the presentation, just let us know so we can fix it. While we continue, we would like to know where are you connecting from? Are you a student? Are you in Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, Brisbane? Just let us know so we can know who you are.
And maybe also where you're from as well, if you're from, which country you're from, so we can share some relevant stories that might help you. We'll also show a video at the end of the webinar of one of our friends here in Melbourne and his personal journey with his objective to have a career here in Australia. And we'll share some example cover letters and resumes throughout this presentation. So we hope you're having a great day. We hope Colombia won the game. And yeah, we're looking forward to just getting a couple more people on, and we'll start in about 1 minute. Is there anything else you want to say in the meantime, Cindy?
No, I just would like to know where people are connecting from and hope you take advantage of this activity so you can success with your job processing.
Cool. So there's a chat box there too. So please feel free to type in where you're joining us from, where you're from, and also throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please type them in and we'll try to answer some of them at the end. Okay. Well, I think that we should be able to start. Yeah? Okay. All right, so again, do let us know if you have any technical difficulties. Yeah? Okay, we hope you enjoy it. Okay, so let's get started. Top tips for getting a job in Australia. Okay. So today's presentation is going to be broken up into 5 main sections: an introduction, where I talk about the most important tips and the most essential elements of a successful job application, and then I break down the actual sections of that application. So the second is the cover letter, which is a letter that you should put in front of your resume in Australia, which is standard and very important. Then we're going to talk about the resume. Then we're going to talk about other tips for success. So these are all the little tips that I've built up over the years of things that I see people do that take away or reduce their chances of getting a call for a job. And then we'll talk about where you can go for further help. Okay, so some of this might be quite general. It might be everyone's on a different journey. Everyone has different expectations, and people are probably looking for different jobs, whether they are waitressing or customer service or professional jobs in your profession. So what I'm trying to focus on is the main aspects of effective communication. Okay, so regardless of who you are and what you're looking for, these tips are important tips for successful communication and successful job applications. So here we go. We're going to look at the standard application process, where you can find jobs, the main problem that people face, the most important tips for success, and the minimum requirements for a written application. That's the introduction. So, in general, the application process is normally that you look for a job and you find a job that you want to apply for. So, you might be familiar with some of these websites in Australia to look for jobs: seek.com.au, gumtree.com.au. You might ask friends. You might participate in networking, which means meeting people perhaps in your field. You might also drop your application straight into the employer. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. And then you will apply, and probably with a written application, and the minimum for that would be your cover letter and resume. We'll go into the top two in more detail in this webinar. Then you get called for an interview, which is usually an initial screening call, which means they're checking that they want to invite you to the interview. Then you attend the interview, and then, of course, you get the job. So as I mentioned, you can look for jobs. You probably know these sites, and there might be many more sites, but these are the most common: seek.com.au. And in Seek, you can look for jobs, and you can look for part-time, casual. You can choose your search preferences. Gumtree is a little less formal. It's, there could be a range of different casual jobs and individuals seeking you to do work. So it's not as official or trustworthy as seek.com.au. Then there's freelancer.com. If you're not familiar with Freelancer, that's where freelancers get on and register to do small jobs. So as a business owner, for example, I've used Freelancer when I needed someone to translate something into Spanish for me quickly, record something in Spanish for one of my audiobooks, record something in English, format some of my books when I haven't had time as a business owner. So you can register your skills there, and you might find, jobs that help you. You can also look at volunteering as an option, which people might tell you about. You might want to get volunteer experience, unpaid experience that matches where you want to be in your career, and it gives you valuable Australian experience. So that's a possibility. Blue Studies sends out newsletters with job tips for you, and they often send out example jobs that are available at the moment. You can also go to the careers or employment section of an actual website, of a business website. So you decide you want to have a look at what jobs are available at Woolworths or Coles or World Vision or the University of Melbourne. Go straight to their careers and employment and check what they've got. Sometimes you can find really good professional level jobs that are part-time that might fit around being a student. So always, don't think that you have to just go for the typical ones that students go for. Keep your objective in mind and work towards, looking for jobs in your field or that complement your experience. So you could also do some networking, and that means with friends, or you could Google for professional events in your profession. So for example, I was involved with Women in Resources Victoria, And all of their networking events are open to the public, and they're very valuable, and you can go and you can have lunch and you can talk to people, and you often see really interesting speakers who give you lots of help. So I've seen people who are not, engineers, or they're not of that profession, but it doesn't matter. They can still go to these events and have fun and learn something. You could also go to things like the Blue Studies Language Exchange. You never know, you might meet someone there who has a connection, who knows of a job that's available. You could also start socialising on places like meetup.com and just talk to people. That's networking, meeting people and talking to them and letting them know that you're looking for a job. Of course, you can also do the traditional dropping your application straight into the employer. So you could go to the restaurants in Lygon Street or the city. I have a friend from Chile, and she had a job within a few weeks of arriving in Melbourne, in South Melbourne where she lives. She just went down Clarendon Street and asked to speak to the manager of every restaurant, and she got a job very quickly. So there are lots of different ways depending on your objective and what you want to do. The biggest problem that people face and why they come to me is they send out written applications, lots of them, and they get no response, nothing back. This is a really common thing. In my experience, the problem is usually with the written application and how they write it. And once they spend a little bit of time improving their cover letter and resume, they start to get more and more calls from employers. So I'm going to share just a testimonial, not to promote myself, but just because I know that it's true. This does help people. I've helped people from all different countries and from Australia, whether English was their first language or not. Everyone benefits from having a professional look at their cover letter and seeing if they could make it better, because people generally don't like to sell themselves. They feel a bit uncomfortable. But you've got to do it, because the cover letter, your resume, is your chance to sell yourself to an employer. So that's what I'm going to focus on. So here I'm going to share my testimonial. This is Amy McNichol, who's an Australian girl in Queensland, and we wrote applications, she and I, together for about 6 different jobs. She was looking for government jobs in her area, legal and adoption services, and she did get a job. So she contacted me for my services, and she said that she'd tried many before with not much success, but once she asked for my help, the results were instant and amazing. I didn't tell her to write that. That's what she said. It is my passion to take what someone has written and write it in a way that's irresistible to the employer. So I hope it helps. So the biggest thing is that your application must reflect the requirements of the job. It must tell the employer why you're the right person for the job. It doesn't matter what level of job it is. That's the most important thing. The person who's reading it needs to know why you. And if they've put an ad where they've put requirements, you must tell them that you meet those requirements, because when they have many applications, they're only going to choose to look at those ones that tell them clearly why they should give that person the job. So in a written application in Australia, you probably already know, you have to have a cover letter and a resume. It's really uncommon that you don't have to have a cover letter. Perhaps when you go and drop your resume at restaurants, maybe you don't need it as much, but still it wouldn't hurt, because it really will make you stand out above all the other people who maybe just drop their resume. And it doesn't have to be really long. It just can be concise, friendly, and it makes that person want to contact you and want to read your resume. So cover letter is just a letter that says who you are and why you should be employed. So it's an introduction to you and your skills and why you'd be good for the job. Employers in Australia usually use the cover letter to decide whether they even want to look at the resume. So that's actually the truth. They'll read a cover letter and decide if they want to read more about that person. So it's like a sales document. It's your first impression. It says a lot about you. The 2 biggest cover letter mistakes that people make: number 1, not including a cover letter. especially when the job application has asked for a cover letter. That's the first test failed. If it asks for a cover letter and you don't, it's hard, but you can't expect to hear anything back. Number 2 is sending out a generic cover letter. So what that means is that all the language is just so general, it looks like something that you've sent out to everyone, and that's really obvious to someone who reads it. And it makes, for the employer, it gives the impression that you didn't want to take even 5 minutes to look up something about their company. So generally, those sorts of letters are not as successful. So here's some examples of what I mean by generic. So for example, in a generic cover letter, you might have, I'm enthusiastic about the position at your company. Whereas, of course, a specific cover letter is going to say, I'm enthusiastic about applying my engineering skills and experience to the lead engineer position at Yarra Trams, whatever it is. Here's another example. Same generic first sentence. And the second one, I am enthusiastic about sharing my passion for Mexican food in the waiter role at Mamacitas. And I mentioned Mamacitas because there is a job there at the moment, so you'll see that a little bit later. But see how it's specific. It's not just at your company. That tells the employer that you didn't even take 1 minute to change your company to the name of their company.
Okay.
So, and if you want to understand the importance of cover letters, let's look at what 3 people from Australian recruitment companies say. A recruitment company is a company that you go to and you register and say that you're looking for work, and they might find a job for you. And it doesn't matter if you're a student, you can still contact them and say what you're looking for part-time, and those people will work to find the right position for you. Many of the jobs that I've had over my career have been through recruitment companies, administration jobs, temporary jobs that have given me lots of experience. So here are 3 people from those sorts of companies. Maybe I won't read it all out. I'll just read the most important parts. But here's Jason Walker, who's the director of Hayes, which is a worldwide recruitment company. He looks for cover letters that are tailored to suit each job. So tailored means it has to be changed so that it matches what the job is asking you to do. It can't just be generic. As he says, all too often we see generic cover letters that are not tailored to the role, or worse, were used for another application and still have another company name in. So that's a danger as well. Watch out that you don't do that. Check that. Do you know what? Everyone does it. I've done it once. Even for a job that I got, I actually did that. So that was the biggest mistake ever. But luckily, I called the person straight away and apologized and so on. So as he says at the end, it should be written so that the reader cannot possibly pass it over without opening the resume document itself. So that's what I was talking about. People read the cover letters in order to decide whether they should read your resume. Number 2, Ian Scott, who's a manager at Randstad, he says that when he requests a cover letter, he reads it before opening the CV. So there you go again. So if a candidate fails to include a cover letter after I requested one, they failed their first test. Sorry. And I bet their CV says they have great attention to detail. Okay. So he looks for cover letters that show that the candidate has taken the time to read the advert and the job description, proof that they've looked at the company website and if they know who the employer is. So that's proof again. Generic cover letters generally don't work. You really need to take a few moments to make your cover letter more tailored. I know it's hard with time sometimes, but that's the reality. Another person, Tony Pownall, talks about he's impressed by a cover letter when a candidate talks about their motivation and passion for a particular role. And he says, of course, don't forget, even if time is tight, get someone else to read over your cover letter and provide feedback. Getting it right can really boost your chances of landing the job. Okay. And I think that everyone can get a copy of this as well. So if I'm speaking by any chance too fast or there's too much information, you can get a copy of this presentation afterwards so that you can read it and have it for your reference. Okay, but the main thing that we talked about so far is a cover letter is important. Everyone agrees. So yeah, this is important, cover letter and a resume. So how do you write a cover letter? Well, a great way to start, if you're not sure where to start and you don't have any help or examples, is just the first step is search Cover Letters Australia or Cover Letters Waiter Australia in Google Images. And you can find hundreds of examples that will help you with the structure of a cover letter, and then you can change it to suit you. So have a look. Here we are in the next slide. I've just searched Cover Letter Australia, and you can see lots of examples there that you could click on and they could help you. Resume, casual work. So lots of examples there to get you started, as well as help from people like me or from Blue Studies. Here's one of those letters, looking at it a little bit more closely. Now, I don't have time to read everything in this letter, but I'm just going to show you the main features. So you can see that the person has put their contact details at the top, and my little note underneath is that they forgot their email and mobile number. So don't forget in your cover letter to include your email and mobile cellular number, okay? So don't forget that. Good structure on the left, I say good structure. It's addressed to Mrs. Jane Smith, the company, and the details. Sometimes now, these days, you won't have all of the address details, but you might at least have a name and a title, company name, and an email address. As long as you're addressing it to someone, even if you don't know who you're addressing it to, you could still write ABC Company and the email address, just to maintain that formal structure of a letter. Then it should have a date, and then it should say dear, the salutation. So in this case, we would say Dear Jane or Dear Ms. Smith, or Mrs. That should be, I'm sorry, I'm used to saying Ms. MS, because that's very common in Australia, to no longer use Miss or Mrs.
Okay.
Because it's quite old-fashioned. It's no longer relevant if a woman's married or not. So that's why in Australia people prefer just to use MS. So I do, for example, because it's not important anymore in this society if I'm married or not as to whether I can do a job. That's the idea there, why women use that. Don't say Dear Ms. Jane. It doesn't make sense to put a salutation like an MS and then a first name in English. Anyway, and then you'll see a few paragraphs about why they're applying for the job. So the first one, the introductory paragraph, usually says, and I'll show this again and I'll give you a step-by-step. It says why you're writing, what are you applying for? And then there are some paragraphs that follow that talk about your experience and how it's relevant to what they are looking for. Okay, and you get the information about what they are looking for from their website or from the job ad. And at the end, you say something like a closing statement like, I have attached my resume for your consideration and hope to hear from you soon. And then you would say yours sincerely in your name. Yours sincerely is still appropriate in Australia. Something like cheers would be too informal, and yours faithfully is becoming too old-fashioned and formal. So yours sincerely. And that should be yours sincerely, not your. That person in Google didn't have me proofread their cover letter. It should be YOURS. But we'll look at more examples. That's just showing you the general structure that you have to write a letter. It's got to show that what you have is what the employer needs. You can show that you're excited about the role and tell the employer why you're the person for the job. For example, you should use specific language, not vague. That means I would like to, so because there is a lot of information in this webinar, if you have any questions, please just type them in the chat box or write them down so that you can ask them at the end, okay? And we'll still be available to help you after this webinar. So we apologise that there is a lot of information, but yeah, you can get a copy of this and ask us questions. So, you know, say that you want to work at Mamacitas, not that you want to work at your company. There is a job for carers of seniors coming up. So instead of saying, I am good with seniors, you should say something specific. I am polite, respectful, physically strong, and have a great sense of humour, all qualities that help me connect with and serve seniors. Something like that. Yes, we're going to share the webinar. And yep, okay. Sorry, I'm just checking some of your questions at the moment. Yeah, so it does, and definitely we have another question about sharing the same information on both documents. I will show you an example at the end. I always share the same information on both documents, the cover letter and the resume. Definitely, because I want, if they print something out, but they lose part of my application, I still want them to have my contact details on every page. And in fact, I make the cover letter look the same as the resume in terms of the formatting, because that looks more professional as well, and it looks more impressive. So leave all the information, contact details on your cover letter and on your resume. Okay. So here I'm going to go through pretty quickly because you're going to get a copy of this if you want. And also you can email me or you can email Cindy, email at Blue Studies, and they can provide you copies of any of this information. So don't worry too much, just try to enjoy it and get some useful tips. Here's an example of a cover letter that a student of mine did years ago. I changed the name, but she was going for a housekeeper position. So notice that she's got her name there, her contact details. She's addressed it to the person. I just put my name, but it was someone else at the housekeeping company. She's put the date and she's put what her letter is about, which is something that you can do. The re means regarding. And then she's written a cover letter, Dear Miss Korecha. She said who she is and what she's applying for. And then she gives me a summary of her experience and why she would be good for my company. And she's given me information about her good points. And then she says she's attached the resume and she looks forward to hearing from you. So if I'm an employer and I receive that, I'm going to be very impressed and I'm going to want to look at Jane's resume rather than someone who just sent me their resume, you know, because it shows me that she took some time and she's impressive. She's got what I need. I'm not sure that I'll read out all of this, but I just want to show you that this is an example of a cover letter that definitely worked, because this was my cover letter when I applied for a job that I applied for about 4 or 5 years ago, a job that I held for nearly 4 years as a technical writer and a proofreader and an editor at a firm of engineers, during which time I was also responsible for maintaining their resumes as well, all the engineers there at the firm. So this was my cover letter. Obviously, I've made up my address, but you can see the structure there with the date, and I've said what it's about. And my first paragraph is who I am and what I'm applying for. And then I've got two, it can be 1, 2, or 3 paragraphs. It doesn't really matter as long as you're putting relevant information. It should be no more than 1 page though. So here in the first paragraph, I talked about my background. In the second paragraph, I talked more specifically about what they wanted. And the same in the third paragraph. At the end, I always close with something like, I have attached my resume and thank you for your time and consideration. Or I could say something else like, look forward to expanding upon my application at interview. So I'll show you more examples of this. But the point is, I didn't underline all of those in my letter. I'm just showing you those because those were all keywords that I took from the ad. in the ad, they said that they want someone who is comfortable using established corporate communication guidelines. So I put it in there. Someone with exceptional grammar and proofreading, someone who's happy following established internal registration and communication processes, all of those things, expert in sense checking reports for consistency and style, and advanced MS Office skills. So those were all straight from the ad, and I'm telling the person, yes, I definitely have them. And I'm giving lots of examples of why I have them. So for example, I say I have advanced MS Office, but I don't leave it at that. I say what my typing speed is and so on. So I give examples. And in all of those, if you read them, I've given examples of these. That's quite a long one, but it suited the nature of that job, whereas I wouldn't always have something that long. But this was a job about writing, so I had to show that I was a good writer. So here's a checklist. When you're not sure, go through and make sure that you've got all of these things, 1 to 10. Your name and address, traditionally the full address, but now sometimes people are accepting that you could just put a suburb and a postcode. As long as you've got your email address and telephone number, that's the most important thing these days. And then address, number 2 is the name and title of the addressee, the person who you're writing it to. So the hiring manager or the person listed as the contact in the job ad, if you can find it. If you can't, then even just the company name and email address. So you might write Hayes and then their email address. This little extra step shows that you are meticulous and diligent. The date, the salutation, as we talked about before, and then an opening paragraph, who you are and what you're applying for. And then the second and third, you don't have to have a third, but if you do, it would just have more relevant information about how your skills match what they're looking for. So in the end, it's just read the ad, take out the keywords, make sure you understand what they're looking for, and write about that. That will make a difference to you getting called. So number 8 is closing. Mention that you've enclosed your resume for their consideration and any other documents that they requested and that you look forward to hearing from them. So I like to use the sentence, for example, I look forward to the opportunity to expand upon my application at interview. I've been using that sentence forever. I saw my mum use it years ago when I was a kid, when she was applying for a job, and I liked it. But, you can change it to be something that you like, but generally that's the sort of sentence you'll see at the end. Then you'll say it's something like yours sincerely and your name. I think that yours sincerely is the safest in terms of formality. It's not too formal and old-fashioned, but it's not too informal that it might look a little bit disrespectful. You wouldn't say cheers. You might write best regards. But I think for a job application, still that degree of formality shows some respect. But again, it depends. If it's a really informal place, then you might change it. But yours sincerely is very safe. So I'm just going to show you 2 example job ads that are available at the moment, 2 jobs, and have a look at some of the underlined words because they tell you what the employer is looking for. And if you don't talk about these, it's really hard, it's really unlikely that they will contact you, unfortunately. So, for example, number 1 is the wait and bar staff at Mamacita at the moment. So there's the job ad that's on Seek at the moment. You can read all of that on Seek, and if you get a copy of this presentation, but look at the words I've underlined. It says where speed and good time management will be needed. They're telling you that you need those things. So in your cover letter, tell them that you're comfortable with speed and you have good time management. And then there are more details. Then this is important. If you are neat, clean and tidy, have the means to get home at the end of the night. That means, are you able to get home? And you have a relevant work visa, please apply. So they're telling you, you should say in your cover letter that you are neat, clean and tidy, that you can get home at the end of the night and that you do have a relevant work visa. It's telling you what to tell them. it also says that previous bar or floor experience is a plus, but not necessary. So if you have it, it would be great, but you don't have to have that to apply. And of course, for many of our listeners, knowledge of Spanish language. So that would be important to say that you have knowledge of Spanish language if you do. And love of Mexican food are a bonus. So these are all, they're giving you some good clues about the words that you should use in your cover letter. Underneath, it tells you you will be asked the following questions when you apply. These are specific questions that Seek will ask you. Sometimes Seek does that, but the questions will come up and you'll just have to answer them. You don't have to really integrate that into your cover letter. Okay. I'll go to the next one now. So another one that I saw is, at the moment, Italian or Spanish-speaking personal care attendants. I know of many people in my circle of friends who've done this sort of work as well. Not saying you have to do this, it's just what I know that some people have done. So they look after maybe elderly people in the community, and in this case who speak Italian or Spanish, to support seniors living in the community. But there again, clearly they tell you what they're looking for. So include those things, if you have them, in your cover letter. Say that you're positive and friendly. Say that you can speak Spanish. And if you have those certificates that they're asking for, do tell them. So if you need more help with this sort of stuff, that's where Blue Studies can help you with information about how you get those sorts of certificates, okay, if that's a job you're interested in. But there you go, you've got the email address as well, and they've told you what to write in your cover letter. So we're at part 3 of 5, now onto the resume. Some people still write resume with the tildes, the accent marks that come from the French, because it's originally a French word. But increasingly, people in English are not using them, so that's why I don't. And they still say resume. They don't say resume. And there is a difference between a resume or a CV, and you can look at that if you really want to. But in Australia, generally, people don't really care about that. Okay. It's one and the same. People are not going to mind whether you say resume or CV. They think it's the same thing. So it's just basically the same thing, which is your employment history, your key skills, your contact details. It's your hoja de vida, basically, for the Spanish speakers. It might be a little bit different in Australia from what you're used to. So the key tips, a few key tips that I'll give you: clear and simple. Easy to read, language specific, so this is repeating a little bit, but not vague. I see a lot of vague, and it just makes a boss, say, that's what everyone writes. Good with people. What do you mean you're good with people? Use descriptive adjectives. You're punctual, you're reliable, you're well-mannered, you're respectful. Don't just say things like good with. When you say excellent communication skills, great communication skills, which is something everyone writes, say something about that. Have you got a fast typing speed? Have you written articles? Do you enjoy public speaking? Things that are actually telling the employer something about you. But yeah, just try to keep it specific if you can. Well formatted, and by that I mean just really neat. It doesn't have to have impressive graphics and everything, unless you're applying maybe for a job as a graphic designer. Then you would use those things. But in general, any general job, people just want it simple, clear, easy to read. Check for inaccuracies, so any mistakes. Make sure you don't have any mistakes. Get someone to check it if you're not sure, because it's, unfortunately, it can be very competitive, and you don't want to give those employers a reason to think that you're not a person who's meticulous or well presented. Okay. Most importantly, when you're deciding what to include, always just think about what's relevant to the employer and position. Okay, so whether it strengthens your application or not. So what I mean by that is sometimes people ask me things like, should I include hobbies and interests? Should I include this? Should I include that? And I always answer, what's the job? What's the company? Because there's no one answer to effective written communication in the world. It's who's the audience? What are they looking for? So I don't include hobbies and interests in professional level applications, but I might if it's relevant to the job. So for example, if I'm applying for a job at a charity, I might list my hobby of volunteering at the local homeless shelter because it demonstrates qualities relevant to that job. But if it's just singing and dancing, but I'm applying for an engineering job, I don't think I'd put that there. Wouldn't be relevant. So it's always just ask yourself, if you say, should I include it? Think about who's reading it and would it be important for them? So I'm just going to check. Yep, okay. So I'm going to go quite quickly through these next few slides because basically I can summarize that for formatting, you need it simple, neat, well formatted. The worst mistakes I see are people just not paying attention and using different size fonts, different size bullet points, some things indented 2 centimeters, some 1, and it just looks messy. And it gives the impression that you're messy in your work, which is not what you want to give that impression, regardless of the job. Okay, so as I said, fancy graphics not normally needed unless it's relevant for the job. Be clear and concise. Don't use vague, flowery language. Less is more. Proofread for errors. The worst thing as a boss, I've had people apply for jobs with me and they've said that they have excellent writing skills or attention to detail, but their application has a lot of errors. So that's not good. I mean, I don't mind errors, but if you say that you have excellent attention to detail, then you should definitely check that you don't have any errors. The content, I'm going to summarize this because we're going to run out of time. It's relevant. Whatever is relevant, but a few things that might be interesting for you if you're not from Australia. Here, personal details. Let's go to the 4th point. Personal details like marital status, if you're married, what religion you follow, they're not included here. Date of birth might be, but only if relevant for the job. It's now illegal for employers to ask those sorts of things, race, religion, marital status. It's not relevant to a job. And so people shouldn't be discriminated against on the basis of age or religion or ethnicity. So that's why that's not included in job applications in Australia. Photos, it's a contentious issue. Generally, photos are not included. It's not standard. I've never put a photo on a job application of my own, for example. It's just really unusual. I would only do it if it was relevant for the job, if I was doing a modelling job or, I don't know, maybe air hostess or something where, your appearance is part of what they were asking for. Some people say, yeah, do it anyway. It's up to you, but really, generally, it's unusual. So no photo. Seek.com.au is a place where you can go to find jobs. But if you want more information, did you know there's also a lot of useful articles there about how to write a cover letter and a job application? So if you go to the homepage under tools, you'll find advice and tips, and you'll find lots of articles about how to write a resume, how to write a cover letter. So here's an example that is from one article there, and it says make sure you include the skills that are relevant to the job, even if that means adjusting your resume for each new application. So people have to do that too. People ask me, should I put my education at the top? Well, if it's relevant to the job, yes. If it's not, it doesn't need to be at the top. What is most relevant to the job should be at the top. Maybe skills or certificates. Yeah. So of course, as a teacher, I have to put my qualifications at the top. But maybe as a builder, I don't have to put my education, maybe just certificates related to my work. So it needs to change. Keep to the employer's submission requirements. If they've told you they want something, do it. If they've told you they want your resume in Word format, not PDF, don't send them the PDF. If they've said they want a cover letter, send them a cover letter. Otherwise, you're really not going to probably hear from them, unfortunately. I did a job once where I needed someone to record something for me in Spanish, and I asked for a recording of their voice, and probably about 80% of them sent it. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I don't have time to contact the 20 other percent who didn't send me that. Okay. I might just go to the other tips and then I'll come back to the example. Is that okay? You need a professional neutral email address. Okay, we're nearly finished. John Smith, not Sexy John. Don't put an email that's difficult to type, like with all numbers. Phone number in Australian format. So we generally put mobile numbers for the first 4 numbers, then 3, not breaking them up in ways. And that goes for when you talk to people as well, because it's unusual. Be clear and relevant. Another tip is if you want to make your application stand out, go to the website of the company that you're applying for and get some keywords from their website. Most of them have a careers or employment section and they talk about who they are looking for. So take a few words from there and it shows that you've done something extra, and that will make your application stand out and probably be at the top of the pile. For example, if you're looking for a job at Yarra Trams, it says, we're looking for friendly, inclusive people who share our customer and safety-focused approach. That's on their website. So you go and you can use that. You say something like that in your cover letter. Say that you're friendly and inclusive. I might just skip this one because the third point is the most important. In your resume, put your contact details in the header so that they're visible on every page. I just think that's helpful. No matter what page they're on, they can see your contact details. If they print and they lose a page, they can still have your contact details. But remember, this is just general advice. Every job, company, application and applicant is different. So if you're still finding it difficult, I can help you to write those tailored applications. Now, so that this will be you soon. Yeah. All right. And for further help, you can contact Blue Studies International. I can review your resume and cover letter with my email there at redenglish.com.au. I do student resumes and cover letters. I review them for $49, which is a lot cheaper than most people in Melbourne. So that's just for students, so that I can help the students out. I'm just going to flick back to one example, and then I'm going to show you a video. So here's just an example cover letter. I'm not going to go through it in great detail. I'm just going to show you. So it will just flick to the example cover letter. So the reason I wanted to show you, this was actually for my friend's husband who was looking for a job as an electrical lineman, and he'd been retrenched because of economic difficulties. But I just wanted to show you how my resumes and cover letters look. Just very clean and simple and neat. And it says who the person is, why they're applying, and in this case, he listed all of his qualifications that were the safety qualifications that were relevant for that job, very clear. So if someone sees that, they want to read the resume. It's very clear. And notice the format is very simple with the address and contact details up the top. And also what I do is I make sure that the resume matches that. So if we have a look at the resume of this particular friend, do you see how it looks? In this case, it was a CV. That was just because that was what they asked for in the job ad. But the same, see, it's the same format. And as you see, I don't use over-the-top graphics. This is just a job for a tradesman who works up the electrical poles. It's not necessary. People want things that's clear, easy to read, They can see what the person's qualifications are and their employment history. Notice no details about whether he's married, what religion, date of birth, not important. Photo, not important for this job. And then his employment history. But notice that I've taken care to make sure that it's very neat. Everything is consistent with the dates. Okay, this one has months, but that's okay. With the dates and the spacing and everything. The education was at the end there, and then references, which are also important. And I forgot to add, if you don't have the references there, you can write available upon request. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that in this presentation, available upon request. But if you have them, please give them like that with the details. So that's pretty much what a basic one will look like. Okay, so I hope these tips have been helpful. I now want to share with you a little video of a friend of ours, Camilo, who is an international student and a systems engineer. He's going to be speaking in Spanish, so I hope that's okay. Yeah, I'm just going to share it with you. Here we go.
Hola amigos, mi nombre es Camilo, soy ingeniero de sistemas y llevo 4 meses aquí en Australia. Mi objetivo de estar aquí es que quiero estudiar inglés y quiero desarrollar mi vida profesional y a futuro, un futuro muy corto, poder tener una compañía y prestarle los servicios a todos los australianos y estudiantes internacionales. Para poder comenzar con este proyecto necesité conseguir un trabajo de tiempo parcial. Así que lo estoy haciendo, estoy trabajando, pero no he perdido mi objetivo, porque mi objetivo es poder tener la empresa y desarrollar mi vida profesional aquí en Australia. Así que mientras que estoy trabajando en mi tiempo parcial, yo estoy desarrollando todos mis objetivos y pudiéndolos cumplir poco a poco, porque esto se requiere tiempo. Les recomiendo a todos tener una muy buena presentación de su hoja de vida, ser constantes y nunca perder su objetivo. Al tener todo eso, ustedes van a ser exitosos y estoy seguro de eso. Mucha suerte.
Okay, so as Camilo said, it's important, to not lose your objective and to have a very good CV and resume. So I think we can finish with that. Now we're going to go, let's just go back to that final page. Further help, yep. And now we'll have some time. That's all of the content that I wanted to go through with you today. I hope that you found it helpful. Let's see if I can answer some of your questions now. So here's a good question. What happens when you want to apply for a job that you don't have experience for, which is very common, but that you think you have the skills to do it? Well, you need to be confident in the way that you write that, and you need to do your research on the company and look at what they're looking for and explain to them in a cover letter very clearly how your skills could transfer across. So you can do it. For example, I used to be an English teacher, but they were asking for a proofreader and editor at my last job. So I didn't have experience as a proofreader and editor, but I talked about my skills in the English language and my grammar, and I just focused on that. So it is possible. I know that that's a hard thing, but you just have to write it creatively. Don't write in a way that is doubting or makes you appear not confident. Don't say, although I don't have experience, it's not the best to do that. Just don't be negative. Be positive about yourself. Say, I have excellent skills. I have such and such skills which will enable me to perform the duties exceptionally. I look forward to you giving me the opportunity to show how my skills can work for this job. I hope that helped. Just be confident. Don't. But I'd have to look at the actual job and your actual experience to know exactly what to tell you. What else have we got? Nothing else? Okay. Cool.
If you have questions, just let us know so Lois can support you. Let's tell us if you have what's the main difficulty that you have during your job application, so Lois could advise you with that. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. I am going to share. Okay. Yes, we're going to share the presentation. Keep the same information on cover letter. We're just looking at the questions, guys. Oh, okay, we've answered that one. What about if I have a certificate? Okay, so that's a very specific certificate. There's a question about a certificate for using heavy machinery with ISO 9001. Can I work with this certificate? That's something that I would have to research and look at. What area do you want to work in? So is that in, I'm not sure about that heavy construction certifications. So heavy machinery, is that something that you could apply in the mining sector or construction? That's a very specific question for me to be able to give an answer for. You'd have to have a look at, I recommend you email me at louisec@redenglish.com.au and I can have a quick look for you about that. Okay, online applications, are they better than going to give the resume face-to-face? It depends on the job, doesn't it? I think that if you're going to ask people to go and be a waiter, all restaurants are used to people coming and giving them their resumes, so that's okay to go face-to-face, and people want to see who you are. Online applications are fine as long as you write something really that makes you stand out, because otherwise they're going to receive 100 online applications and they're going to choose the top 20 with a really good cover letter, which really tells them what they're looking for. So the best way is a combination of all of those things: online applications, going to places, asking your friends, asking your contacts, getting out there and talking to people. Especially in Australia, a lot of jobs come from just speaking to someone, just having a casual chat and finding out about opportunities. Well, the answer about we've got a question about how to answer in an interview, why should we hire you? Jenny, why should I hire you? You need to tell me. Why? What skills have you got? This is a question that you need to prepare beforehand. And if you guys want, I have a document about the top 10 questions that you'll get asked for an interview. And I recommend that you prepare those answers in advance so that you're really confident going into the interview. You should know why people should hire you. You should know what they're looking for and what you have. So if someone asked me for that editor job, why should we hire you? I would say, well, I'm an expert in writing and English grammar, and I'm meticulous in my written communication, and I have this such and such experience, and I would go into that. Not too long, but just relevant. How to look confident in an interview, any tip? Interviews and confidence, it takes practice to be more confident in an interview. It's really easy for me to say, but you've got to be relaxed. If you look nervous, you will come across nervous and the communication will be strange or awkward. In Australia, generally, my impression from my clients is that my students from other countries, they try so hard in interviews that they're too formal for the Australian culture, if you know what I mean. And once you're at an interview, you should be confident it's because you've got the skills and they like your application. They just want to meet you and find out what sort of person you are, and how you would fit into their organisation. So how to look confident? Fake it until you make it. Just be confident. Prepare and know what you're going to say. And if you feel yourself talking for too long about something, just say, I'm sorry, I'm talking for too long. I would like to know, what about, change the topic. It's really hard for me to give that advice of how to be confident. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself and know that if you're at the interview, it's because they like your application already. How could we do the difference between so much competence? I'm not sure I'm understanding. Do you mean if you've got a lot of skills, what should you choose to put in your application?
I think that he means that if as are many applicants,
yeah.
so what?
How could you make the difference? So for me, it's always those little things. When I help someone with a cover letter, the little thing I do is I go to the company website and I get some keywords and I integrate that into the cover letter. And straight away that puts my clients at the top because they've gone an extra step than other people. And I say one or two interesting anecdotes and real examples that tell someone about who I am as a person. So, for example, I have a friend who's a lawyer and they have great negotiation skills, but he said he had great negotiation skills, and in his cover letter I told him to give an example. When did he negotiate an important deal and what was the result of that for the company? So, and don't make your cover letter look the same as everyone else's. Say something unique that makes you interesting, that makes someone want to read your resume, and that will stand you out. This is an interesting question about understanding the questions over the phone when the employer calls. Number one, don't feel bad if you don't understand something. It doesn't matter if English is your first language or not. If you don't understand the question, you tell them. You're not going to get in trouble. I'll say, I'm sorry, what, could you ask me that again? Could you rephrase the question? I'm sorry, could you tell me what you mean by that? I also have one really great tip from a friend of mine who's in human resources. And she said, when the person calls you about an application, and they say, is this it? Hi, Cindy, I'm calling you about your application. Can we have a chat? You say, yes. Is this a good time? There's nothing wrong. You could say yes if you're feeling ready, but there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm so sorry. It's not a great time right now. Can I call you back in half an hour? That's a really good tip. And what you do is go back to your application, read it, know what your main things are, your main strengths, and go and refresh who the company is, what the job was. Get those keywords so that you're better prepared. I had a friend again who was a lawyer and he just took the call, but then they asked him about some specific legislation. And if he had have taken half an hour to research again what are the main things that he should mention, he would have been more successful in that first phone call. Don't feel bad. Just say, I'm sorry, could you please rephrase it? Or, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that question. Yeah, totally. So the difference, if that's what I'm saying, if everyone says they have good communication skills, it means nothing to an employer. What I do is give examples. I'm a public speaker. I'm a teacher. I'm comfortable speaking in front of people. I wrote these articles. Here are some. Nowadays with LinkedIn, it's very good because you can actually get recommendations from your friends, so people can actually, read recommendations about you. So yeah, definitely don't just say good communication skills, blah, blah, blah. Say what you mean by that. Even just put a dash and say experienced public speaker, excellent. I applied for a government role a long time ago. I used to work for the immigration department, and it's really important to be specific with your examples. My boss there helped me to get a permanent job, and at that time, 10 years ago, I was vague in my responses. I said things like, good communication skills. And he said, you have to say what you mean by that. When someone talks to you and you don't understand, do you slow down? Do you use different words to make sure that people understand you? What are your communication skills? So be specific. That will make a difference. Yeah, so applying by websites, I told you about that because that's really the area that's my clients contact me for, because my area is writing and making sure that they have a good cover letter and a good resume that's perfect, basically. Going out and delivering your CVs, it depends on what you're looking for. I do know that there are lots of places that expect that. But be prepared that many other places might just say, the manager's not here, please give me your resume. So don't feel bad or disheartened about that. I think it's a good thing. Like I said, I have my friend from Chile, and she got a job as a waitress just from going to her local restaurants. So that really worked for her because the boss was there and he was able to meet her straight away and see that she was friendly, see that her English was very good. And then he invited her to do a trial, and she came and did waitressing for one shift, and then he gave her a job. So it depends on what you are looking for and what your main objective is, like Camilo said. I think that's it. Yeah. Yep. I think that's all. Anything else that you want to know, please just email me and we can continue the conversation in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lois, for your help. So thank you to you guys for being here and want to learn something to improve your resume, your job hunting support process. So if you have any question, just let us know. So we are going to send the presentation to you. And thank you so much. See you next time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.